Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Statesman podcast. If you find value in these conversations, please don't forget to subscribe. Your subscriptions will do us a lot of good. So, in our previous episode, we made some very startling but very accurate predictions towards the 31 March protests, where we predicted that it's highly likely to be a big nothing beggar given the conditions that we mentioned that prevail in Zimbabwe. So we are going to do a follow-up today on 31 March shockwaves. Mchangwa's meltdown presser, which he conducted post 31 March, and the Tagwirei Chiwenga power clash, which we feel is at play right now. So, firstly, I would like us to talk about the key takeaways from the March 31 demonstrations. Our point of departure is that what was meant to be a day of demonstrations ended up being a very successful stay away, where people at odds with Geza's methods did not come up, but maybe they were not at odds with Geza's methods. Were people sending a message that they are okay with ED? But as long as Zimbabwe's problems persist, high unemployment rate, uncontrollable inflation, unpredictable monetary policy, exchange rate instability, etc., people will always be motivated to demonstrate. All the above factors and more, they exist in Zimbabwe in abundance. So why did people shy away from the 31 March protest? As I mentioned in the last episode, police brutality is always to be expected. The only way that would guarantee a successful demonstration to topple the Zim government or against the Zim government, as was the objective, is when you have soldiers putting themselves on the block to say, look guys, we're not going to beat you up, we're part of this, we are with you. I think people in Zimbabwe have come to learn a lesson that if you go out and demonstrate without the security sector backing you up, the end result is brutality, suppression, arrests, and so forth. So people's message for me was abundantly clear. They were not saying they like ED like Chris was assuming. They were not saying anything like that, but I'm sure Chris knows also this. But they were really trying to send a message to the caliber. But the message that people were sending was, if the security sector do not avail yourself to support demonstrations instead of beating us up, we will also stay home. Not because things are fine, but you just can't beat us. Okay, so another reason for staying away was probably absence of a clear plan. What to do after 31 March is, as I did put across in the previous episode, the only imagined plan is to replace ED with Chiwenga. It definitely is not an attractive prospect given Chiwenga's own history back in 2008, be it in Marange, or after the 2008 elections where Morgan Tsvangirai ended up winning. So he is not an attractive prospect, but at this point, I would bet that anything other than the Second Republic and its administration is attractive. Chiwenga will be given a leeway because he seems to be at odds with them at the moment. So giving him a benefit of doubt, but also every time ZANU-PF goes within this period, definitely when it comes out, it doesn't come out strong, it comes out weaker. So it's something that is worth pursuing. The last key takeaway from the 31 March protests for me is that the biggest threat facing Zimbabwe today is the absence of effective opposition. Geza assumed the role of opposition, which explains why many opposition voices, supporters, the ordinary citizens, on social media spoke up in support of Geza. Now, having said so, no recognized opposition party, especially those ones in parliament, spoke up in support of issues that were being raised by Geza, in as much as they resonated with the people. No opposition party in parliament is raising bread and butter issues affecting people. Your causes of mass immigration, collapsed healthcare, unemployment, cost of corruption on civilians, etc. Right. Secondly, Chris Muchangwa presser post 31 March. So I would say there were some very intentional giveaways during the presser that Christopher Muchangwa hosted on the 1st of April. Now, the first one is that Chris is taking the general head on, and another person who's been doing that is also Chiwenga-Tagwirei, the Minister of Local Government. He has been confrontational. Chris is even questioning Chiwenga's whole credentials, despite the fact that Chiwenga's whole history is public knowledge. This also happened to Joyce Mujuru when they started questioning his whole credentials, to the point of even saying she did not shoot down a plane during the war. But this is well documented also. So is Chiwenga going to go the same way as Joyce Mujuru did, eviction from the party and from his position as vice president? Okay, time will tell. Secondly, Geza is a Chiwenga man, so it makes sense from Chiwenga's angle. He needed to stop the 2030 project, which would have dealt a heavy blow to his own ambitions to become the president of the country. Geza was the man to do it, but hold on. Chris, apart from mentioning Geza, he mentioned also a presence of cobweb of foreign detractors and handlers, and spoke at length about the USA, but at the same time singing praise for the American president, to the point of even calling him a comrade, a term synonymous with revolutionary political parties modeled along the Marxist-Leninist movements. The friendly tone to USA should not be taken also in isolation, but if interpreted in the context of suspension of all tariffs levied on US goods coming into Zimbabwe, the first African country to do so. It may also be an appreciation of the USA for refusing a role in 31 March. I think Chris has been spoken at length about how there were attempts to incorporate some elements abroad to be a part of the 31 March movement. So maybe if taken in context of the suspension of all tariffs on US goods coming into Zimbabwe, maybe it's an appreciation of the USA for refusing a role in the 31 March events. But there may be more to this than meet the eye, but our information is limited at this point to make much sense out of it. But I would like to believe that Xavier Kasukwere, Walter Mzembe, and other G4 remnants were involved. Kasukwere already admitted to be the man behind these two guys. Not these two guys, but behind Geza. These two guys, Kasukwere and Walter Mzembe, these are people with enough clout to launch an international campaign to recruit support for the 31 March movement. Now, the military gear Geza has been wearing can easily be bought online in South Africa, where Kasukwere and Walter Mzembe are residing, something which is illegal in Zimbabwe. The acknowledgement by Kasukwere, nevertheless, is also important in that it gives Chiwenga deniability. On face value, you can deny involvement with the project, especially if the project fails. This buys him more time, even though he may now have a target on his back. Now, Chris also confirmed what was in everyone's mind during the presser, that Lieutenant General Anselm Namo Sanyatwe is loyal to Chiwenga. So was Isaac Moyo, the immediate former Director General of CIO, and Godwin Matanga, former Commissioner General of the ZANU-PF. If all these people were loyal to Chiwenga, how many more, particularly in the army, are still loyal to the general. Chris also but confirmed that Chiwenga does not only control or influence the army, but he owns the army. What is also glaring is that Valerio Sivanda is not being mentioned, speaking of the security cluster, despite him being the commander of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. How do you come to praise Emmanuel Matatu, the army chief, but while ignoring his boss? Is Valerio Sivanda also in Chiwenga's corner? Who knows? But time will tell. Now, the third aspect of our presentation today is ZANU-PF succession politics. Without Geza, I would like to believe that by now the 2030 motion would have sailed through parliament by now, given what we know. Energy Mtodi, if you remember, the motion drafted that leaked and was ready to be presented to parliament, which leaked not too far ago to initiate presidential term extension. Now about 250,000 was promised to MPs in addition to their terms, also getting a minimum 2-year extension along the extension of the presidential term, according to the information from an impeccable source. Of course, now Zim Parliament is not up to these kinds of challenges. Now these are people who seem to be in it just for their own benefit, for money, and they are also very much aware, especially those in opposition bench. There are people who are aware that after this term expires, a lot of them, a majority of them most probably will not be able to retain their positions. People are not happy in the opposition. They are not happy with them being a part of this parliament, given what happened ever since Chavango came to the scene. So who is going to succeed ED? Firstly, there is the prospect of Constantino Chiwenga. This is going to be a Mount Everest hike challenge for the former general, given the failed 31 March events. The former general has been exposed, I would like to believe. The ED camp now are aware who their enemy is, and they are actually taking shots at him. Also, Chiwenga is up to June, if you ask me, at most to turn the tables in his favor. Beyond that, measures are being taken already to ensure that every leader within the army who is pro-Chiwenga has been dealt with. They are being replaced. There are indications suggesting that this already started, especially and the point of departure was the removal of Sanyatwe from the army. The presence of Mnangagwa's son, Sean, who is a major in the army, makes it easy to surgically remove Chiwenga people from positions of power in the army and replace them with people that are loyal to the Mnangagwa family. At present, Chiwenga is likely to have a team of colonels doing a strategy for him, but this definitely will not be enough. He needs more people who can think politically, strategically, and critically. He will need more than Chiwenga-Tagwirei and Walter Mzembe if they are in his corner. The two of them, they definitely brings to the table something that soldiers lack. And now, the one person who can actually, without a doubt, turn things into a win for the general is Nelson Chamisa, who has the numbers to launch an effective demonstration. To convince Nelson Chamisa, it would take a promise of a position for me within the presidents and a sizable number of cabinet posts. This is an offer the incumbent can't match. ED can never offer Chamisa that as at present. Now, furthermore, Nelson Chamisa would need a sizable chunk of money, which I believe Chiwenga has, to rebuild the opposition structures, from the roots, and he will need to build a broad-based mass party. This is exactly where Chiwenga will get people from if it's going to go this way. ZANU-PF, I don't see that happening. Chiwenga is a military man. He didn't come through the structures of the party. But then Chamisa will have to work with some individuals that he doesn't have good relationships with at present, like Tendai BT. Those are people who already have people of their own, not only people of their own, but their experience, their mind, their knowledge will definitely come in handy if Zimbabwe is going to have another government. Such individuals with a very good track record, definitely they will come in handy, and Chamisa would definitely need to find himself again and work with these people. What happened during the CCC, within the CCC, is regrettable, but none is righteous. My only worry is if money exchanged hands between ED and Nelson Chamisa, then that would be a problem, because Nelson's behavior has been very suspicious. He's a guy that I like. I met him once at the University of Zimbabwe. He was doing law, I was doing political science. He's really a nice guy that I really like, but of late I think he has been very much questionable. But however, this is not only dependent on Chiwenga, what Chiwenga is going to do. AD is some moves that he can make. For example, he can dismiss Chiwenga as the VP, who serves at the pleasure. VPs, serve at the pleasure of the president, so do cabinet ministers, and this handicaps Sanyatwe. But I feel dismissing Chiwenga without a clear picture of the extent of his power in the army would be very dangerous. So what else can ED do? I think there's another option again. ED can drag Chiwenga along until a ZANU-PF elective congress, and I think this will be a very wise move. And this may take place 2 years from now. Now, with the Politburo in Congress full of ED people, Chiwenga stands no chance with only maybe Engelbert Rugeje and Captain Bonyongwe, the only Politburo members who are likely to support Chiwenga. Chiwenga did not rise through party structures. He came through the military. He's a military man. His true power is not within the party, but it's within the military, which the other camp is working so hard to make sure that they dissipate his power within the army. Now, the other individual who is likely to replace ED, I think Chiwenga-Tagwirei is becoming a very strong candidate to replace ED. On the day of the protest, news broke out that ZANU-PF Harare Provincial Coordinating Committee has unanimously recommended the co-option of businessman and philanthropist Chiwenga-Tagwirei into the central committee of the party. Quite a good number of very good analysts have suggested the plan is to propel him into Politburo, then vice president, and finally to be the presidential candidate for ZANU-PF come 2028. All indications as of now suggest that this definitely must be the plan. So he might not even be elected into the Politburo, but if he is directly appointed as a vice president, he then qualifies by virtue of him being in the presidency to be in a part of the Politburo, which is a board of the party which is responsible for day-to-day decision making and running of the party. But then who is Chiwenga-Tagwirei? This is a man of immense wealth. In 2018, Chiwenga-Tagwirei bought vehicles for all Politburo members and pledged to pay their salaries. And I think up to now he is the man who is responsible for paying salaries of the Politburo. In other words, ZANU-PF Politburo is a captured entity of Chiwenga-Tagwirei. He who is the god pulls the piper. I'm sure you have heard of this. This man came into the picture quite a while ago, working with Simon Mzenda. And then after Simon Mzenda passed away, he shifted his allegiances to Solomon Mjuru. After the demise of Solomon Mjuru, about the information that we know now, he then aligned himself with Constantino Chiwenga. After Constantino Chiwenga fell ill after the coup, he almost died. This prompted Tagwirei to jump ship and align himself to Idi Mnangagwa. So he strikes me as a man who clearly has permanent interests, but not permanent friends. He is loyal to his wealth and to his wealth alone. Wikinochifayo, a massive tenderpreneur, has been exhibiting a behavior which points to the fact that maybe he's aware that Chiwenga-Tagwirei may be the man to replace AD. The amount of extravagance he has been exhibiting a few months ago, Chiwenga gifted Chiwenga-Tagwirei with a 2025 Rolls-Royce Cullinan Black Badge. This is a vehicle which costs $500,000, and to bring it into Zimbabwe, you pay maybe another $500,000 again, which brings the total amount to $1 million. So this and many other signs, it definitely give us pointers to say maybe Tagwirei is the man who has been chosen to replace ED. But will Tagwirei be a good candidate for presidency? Well, this is a man who clearly expresses, in my opinion, how Zimbabwe as a state is degenerated into a liability. In a political science class, it is explained through a state liability, a liability state theory. And other countries in the same category, talk of your Nigeria, your Somalia, your Haiti, your DRC, where for you to be able to make it financially and economically, you have to be attached to the state. Now, without the state, you can't really make much, because the economy of the country has been dissipated. The economy of the country is no longer viable. So the only way to make it is to attach yourself to the state, where you feed on state tenders and state associated projects. This also explains why people don't want to leave office in states like this, and Zimbabwe is exhibiting these signs that it has degenerated already into a liability state. So if you look at Tagwirei, he is a man who needs the state to make money, given his political exposure. He has been making a lot of money through the state, but the state does not need Tagwirei, you see. So in my opinion, he will be a typical president who will compete with the private sector for tenders. And ED clearly maybe has chosen him as his successor to protect his own wealth and family, but Tagwirei has so much power already, immense power. And then as a head of state, I don't see him owing ED anything, and is highly likely to honor no promises, unless maybe if the Mnangagwas comes to control the military, through one of his signs shown. It's very interesting to watch how events are going to develop from now going forth. But I would like to believe that ED was better off with Chiwenga than with Chiwenga-Tagwirei. Chiwenga already has risked his life in 2017 to put ED Mnangagwa on the presidency. So to conclude, what do we make of the impeachment motion that is being driven by Geza? For me, I think it's nothing much more than a soft exit for Geza in this team. Nothing is going to come out of it. Like we said previously, only a palace coup is the one thing that is going to remove the Mnangagwas. Their power is in many sectors, in the judiciary, in parliament. They control the judiciary, they control parliament, which is already 2/3 of the state. It controls the executive. The only aspect of state that they do not control is the military. The only sector of the state that they do not control is the military. But as I said, we are giving Chiwenga up to June. Beyond that, I believe his power would have been neutralized in the army. So if he's going to make any moves, Chiwenga has to move quickly, and he has to move fast to make sure that he achieves his objectives if he's going to replace ED as a president. So thank you so much for listening. If you have any views, any comments, just post them in the comment section, and let's keep the discussion going. Thank you so much. Meet you next time.